Now looking at our quadratic equation, we're going to do completing the square to find the vertex of the function, and then we're going to graph this, and we're going to use intercept and axis of symmetry to be able to graph or sketch this really quickly. So first, let's look at that completing the square technique. So I like to do this all on one side. There is other ways of doing it where you use both sides of the equation, but I only like using one side. So I have f of x is equal to negative 4x squared minus 8x plus 1. What I'm going to do is I'm going to group these two x terms together, basically ignoring that plus 1. It's not part of the grouping anymore. And I'm going to factor out the squared coefficient, negative 4. So negative 4 comes out, and I'm left with x squared, and when I factor that negative 4, this negative 8 becomes a positive 2x inside there, and then I still have that plus 1 just hanging about. Now the completing the square technique here. You take the linear term, so that means this term, this 2. I'm going to take 2, and I'm going to divide it by 2 and then square it. So that gets me 1 squared, which is simply back to 1. This is a number I'm going to add inside my parentheses. So I'm going to have negative 4. I'm going to take x squared plus 2x, and then I'm going to add that 1. So this 1 over here, that's where it's being added from. It's inside my parentheses. Now I've just changed the value of my function here. This is no longer valid. This line does not follow to this line because I've added this. So since I've added it, to make them equal, I have to then subtract it, because essentially when I add the number in and I subtract that number outside, I really just added 0. So I don't change actually the value of it. Okay, that's the idea. So the important thing is to recognize what you really added. So even though you added 1 inside the parentheses, when you multiply, if you were to factor this whole thing or distribute that negative 4 through, you'll see that you actually added a negative 4. Okay, so it's when they multiply. So I'm going to see, this is then, so we're going to be subtracting. So the idea here is we subtract, and then I'm going to see that I subtract the 1 that I added inside times what's on the outside, that negative 4 that's out there. That's what I really need to subtract. And so we have here is the negative 4 x plus 1, because this is, again, becomes a perfect square. And then I have plus 1, and then this becomes plus 4. So this is negative 4 x plus 1, then plus 5. Okay. And so from there, we're going to be able to see that we have our vertex. So be careful when you do this. The format of it is f of x is equal to a times x minus h quantity squared plus k. Notice that I have this plus 1. So it has to be a negative between them. So to rewrite it, so I see everything, this would be rewritten as f of x is equal to negative 4, that's my a value, x minus negative 1. Now you can see h better, plus and then 5 here. So my vertex from here then is negative 1, 5. Okay. So axis of symmetry. Remember, this is an equation. It's a vertical line. X equals -1. Okay. Another thing to find that's easy is going to be the y-intercept. This is, you want to use the first here. Okay. That's what you want to use. You want to use this equation to do it. That's because when you're finding the y-intercept, it's when x is equal to 0. So when I plug it in, f of 0 is equal to -4 times 0 squared, then -8 times 0, and then +1. So this gives me the ordered pair 0, 1. Now to do a quick sketch of it all. Okay, like I said, I've said before, just put tick marks on the x-axis. I was putting it on the, this one would be fine because it only goes to 5, but it's usually not going to just do that. So -1, 5, so we could just call it like right there and be fine with it. Okay, the axis of symmetry, my whole goal in here is to make a straight line. Oh, let's make a straight, solid line. So that's the axis of symmetry. So we'll label it x equals -1, -1. And then we have, what else are we told? Try that again. There we go. There we are. All right, so now it makes more sense. And now we have the y-intercept, which is 0, 1. So say like right about there. And now, because we have this point over here, the axis of symmetry says if there's a point on one side of the axis of symmetry, then on the same distance away, at the same y value, we will have another point. So that means there's another point on this side, same distance away, 1 away, for the same y value. Okay? And so we have our graph that looks like this. So it's a parabola. We see that it opens downward because a is negative. So a, which is equal to -4. Okay, less than 0, so opens down for that reason. It's another thing we have to remember. But once we have all those things, we can go ahead and label. So this is -1, 5. Then we have 0, 1. That means on the other side, 1 away is a -2, 1. And we're done.